Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. It's been too long. I think it's been something like 2 weeks, but we are super excited to be live with you guys today. Happy New Year. This is a great time for us to reflect on all things that went well in 2024 and what we can look forward in the world of technology and local governments for 2025. So today I am joined by our very own Robert Kernovich, who is the VP of Client Success. So he leads all of our project delivery. Hey, Robert, good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Excited to be here. Let's go. 2025.
Let's go. We're so excited for 2025. We ended 2024 just on such a high note and with such momentum. We're super excited to serve all of you this year. So if you are joining us today, please let us know in the comment box. Please ask questions and let us know what your number one New Year's resolution is. It could be personal, it could be professional, but I want to know. Drop it in the chat box. I think for me, I think I want to read more. I want to read more, just, books, fiction, nonfiction. I want to get into more leadership reading so that I can massage my leadership skills. And so that is what I'm focusing on for 2025 personally. Robert, do you have a New Year's resolution that you would like to share?
Yeah, I want to, and it actually ties into professional. I want to go see more of my clients. We had a lot of internal things we were working on this year. And so I wasn't able to hit the road as much as I wanted to. The travel actually doesn't bother me that much. So I really don't have a better excuse to go and see more of my clients. And I like to because I found out when I did do a number of those site visits late last year that being with the clients is what fills my bucket back up. There's a lot of internal stuff that we do. There's a lot of admin things that we have to do. But most of us didn't get into this because of the admin work. We got into it because we loved project delivery, project management, dealing with customers, having those relationships, solving complex problems. So for me, that really only occurs when I'm able to be on site with the clients and dedicate a block of time to them and to the project team. And so that's really what I want to do this year because that's what keeps me excited. That's what really motivates me.
I love that, Robert. And I'm a firm believer in you have to fill your cup before you can fill others. So I love that motivates you. And maybe professionally, maybe my New Year's resolutions is to resolution is to encourage these local government agencies to bring us on site more, especially during shortlist interviews. Right. We want to be at the table with you. You guys know I posted a video a few months back about, joining Zoom calls for shortlist interviews, and it's absolutely driving me crazy. So maybe for 2025, we can encourage you all to bring us on site when you want to interview us for a big modernization project. So
hey, that's a great point. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Let's do it.
What we discovered this year, which we always knew, but we're still post-COVID, and so organizations who never embraced remote work started to embrace it, figured out ways to get people in the same room through Zoom when before that never would have been an option.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that many, many times. What we discovered is, especially for key meetings, you need to be in the room. You need to be able to read the body language. There's usually conversations that occur before that meeting, and then there's the conversations that happen, and we've all been there. As soon as the meeting is done, 2 or 3 people get up and they start talking to each other, and this person goes and talks to this person. There is no way to replace those conversations via Zoom, and there is no way to really accurately read body language on Zoom unless your camera's on and your face is right up in the camera as well. And it's classic with just taking care of people. I mean, would you rather work with someone via Zoom for 2 or 3 years and never having met them in person, or would you like to be able to deal with them in person on a regular basis because it gives you some sort of a connection? So I know it's not possible for every single organization. Some of them are just so busy. Some of them are spread out amongst various campuses that are a mile or 2 or 10 miles apart, or in some cases 15, 20, 30 if you're a housing authority or a county. But being able to talk to you in person and sit down with you and capture those conversations and read your body language and go, I don't think I answered your question. Let's tell me what you're concerned about, or what I missed on things like that, is very difficult to do via Zoom.
It is, it is. It goes back to relationship building, and there's just more that comes out in person. I don't know if it's a comfortability thing, or for me, it is. I think I feel more comfortable when people are beside me, as opposed to Zoom. And I agree, Robert. Being able to read their body language, and if something is making sense. I love to interrupt our shortlist interviews and go back and say, Mr. Smith, I don't feel like we answered your question. Was there something that you didn't understand? Because I can read people like that in person. Now, I do understand that there are, like you've already mentioned, situations where Zoom is the only option. But what is very, I don't know, it's intriguing to me when I am responding to RFPs. Guys, we respond to over 120 RFPs a year, maybe more. But sometimes there is a Q&A that's posted before we respond, right? And a lot of times you wouldn't believe how many people ask, like, how often are you expecting us on site versus Zoom? And I don't know if they're asking because they want to be on Zoom or what, but we want to be on site as much as possible. So do you have any thoughts on that? People are asking that left and right. And I'm like, why ask that? Maybe because they're trying to plan for their teams to be on site. But I don't know, guys. Are you guys seeing more Zoom meetings when these projects are being delivered, or our competition? Are they coming on site? What are they doing? I want to know. If you can comment in the chat. But Robert, do you have any thoughts on site is when we win the deal and we want to go on site? What are your thoughts on that?
So my hard rule is we need to be there for in person for kickoffs, vendor demonstrations, and go lives for sure. And in other areas, we can extend that into discovery sessions, delivery of a needs assessment, RFP pre-submission, bid pre-submission meetings that the client has. Sometimes they ask us to run those for them. Yeah, I think I've noticed the same thing as well. I can't tell early on necessarily if the client is trying to gauge and see what is going to be required of us to be on site, which I will work with the client for whatever we need to do.
Right.
Each client's going to be different. Some clients are like, hey, come on in, I'll get you some office space, and here's an access card. And yeah, we'd love to see you guys here every week. Other clients, hey, I need a really defined purpose for you to be here and in the office, because I don't come into the office on a regular basis. My staff is scattered. We're not going to have time to host you guys or be able to sit down with you for a whole entire day, which is usually not what we're asking to do. So some of it is just clarification with the client as to what the expectation is. But key meetings, I think that's an easy win. Rarely do I have a client come back and say, I know we have this important contract negotiation meeting next week, but don't bother to come on site. We're going to try and get everyone in a room, and then we'll meet with you via Zoom before we start. But no, it's we need to be there in person, because again, especially the key conversations going into it, and then the conversations that happen at the tail end of it as well, you cannot capture via Zoom. There's also the reality that people just get fatigued after a while and they just want to get off the call, right? So you're not going to get the full engagement you think you're going to get all the time via Zoom, or you're going to get people that are going to come in and turn their camera off immediately. And one of the pieces of body language that I always watch out for is, what are people doing in the middle of a meeting? Are they picking up their phone? Are they looking through the stack of paperwork that's on their desk? Are they looking around the room to make eye contact with other people? These are all key things that when we're in those meetings and we see that and we capture that, we go, okay, we need to hurry up and get to the point here, or we're going off topic, or I need to ask the executive director where they're at right now in terms of this, and let's keep this back on track, or let's skip this part and let's keep moving forward. All these are body language signs that are just classic. They've always been there for a lot of us. Very difficult to read via Zoom, and almost impossible with the camera turned off.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want to waste anyone's time or money, right? Because we understand that there are travel costs involved with us coming on site. So, what are some examples of key meetings, Robert, where we will be on site? Number one, we're not going to leave you alone with the software vendor. If you are utilizing us for third party PMO to implement a new technology system, we are not going to leave you alone with the vendor. But give some other examples of when we want to be on site, Robert.
Yeah, I think during the selection process,
Hmm.
which is usually phase two for us, is very, very important. In fact, I would make a strong case that the entire selection process, every time the selection committee meets, it needs to be physically together in a room
Hmm.
because that's how the decisions actually get made. And it's how things are kept on track, especially if it's a situation, and it usually is, where people can speak freely and ask questions of, hey, you guys really like this proposal? I thought it was terrible. What am I missing here? Is it something I'm missing, or am I the only person that sees this as a flaw? You don't really get that via Zoom. You can get that in person, and the selection process, especially with our clients, can very easily be drawn out over multiple months and go way beyond the initial timeline. And so, just for brevity, efficiency, getting everyone's questions answered, and being on track, I think goes a lot better in person. We've had some clients that are, every single time we talk about this, I want you guys to be here on site leading this meeting or help lead this meeting. So selection is the one I think has the biggest impact in terms of meetings, being able to keep things on track, efficient, everyone engaged, all those sorts of things that you need in a long ERP project. You got to keep that momentum going. You got to get people excited. You got them to understand that you're not going to waste their time with a lot of this. In-person meetings is a key way to highlight that.
Yeah, absolutely. And being in person and on site allows you to interact with those end users, right? The ones who are going to be most affected by any modernization effort. And so being able to build relationships with those people helps in the change management aspect as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, do you have, sorry, did you have a thought, Robert?
No, I completely agree. Change management is something our clients are focusing more and more on. I got to give kudos to our clients. They are getting more and more sophisticated every year. It's not like they just rolled out of bed and here's an ERP project that they suddenly have to do. A lot of them have been doing their research for a long time. They put a lot of thought into this. They've worked a lot of the political angles that they need to internally to get the funding, both short term and the long term funding, and the staffing available for it. So they want to jump on OCM as soon as possible.
Hmm.
And that's one of those things you can start immediately on. And that can even be just as basic as messaging what change is coming.
Hmm.
And actually, I'll put it this way: what is coming and what is not coming. Because again, with ERP, we walk in the room and people think, oh no, consultants are going to judge me against some best practice from some other organization that's unrealistic for me. Am I going to be able to learn this new system? Am I going to be able to keep up with this new system? Is it going to dramatically change my job? Is my boss going to find out that I haven't really known how to do this part of my job for a long time? Everyone's insecurities come out with ERP. So OCM get to start day one. And usually, if the client's already up and running, at least in their head on ERP, and this isn't the first time they've talked about it, we can jump on that day one and then help control that messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree with you. I think that our clients are doing a great job. One of the things I want to hone in on and continue the momentum on in 2025 is remaining in the space of that trusted advisor. Again, I go back to reading RFPs, and sometimes these scopes are, literally all over the place. And I think it's because there's so much noise in the marketplace, right? And whoever is crafting this scope, whether it be IT or selection committee or HR, they are just going with what they've heard or what they've read, either on Google or what they've heard from a neighboring city or county or entity, or maybe they're going off of experience of when they did an implementation, you know, 10 years ago. Sometimes these scopes are all over the place. And, I wish there was a place, and I think this is where Avero is trying to be, where all of these folks can come and get unbiased advice on anything related to modernization or change management. I wish you guys would, come to us and ask, just for an unbiased opinion because there's so much bias in the marketplace. And kudos to you all again for doing your research because I can see a difference, but I still see that you guys are dealing with a lot of noise and maybe sometimes you don't know which way is up. So one of the resolutions I would like is to remain that trusted advisor in this space where you guys can come to us and ask us any question, and we're going to tell you exactly what we think about it as an unbiased third party, thought leader in this space. Let me go to the comments really quick. So Kyler says, my New Year's resolution is to be myself. Me too. I think sometimes it's easy to forget who we are because we're in a professional setting, or we think that, clients want a certain type of version of us because they do rely on us all the time. But I do love that. Be yourself always.
And
Lex,
clients can smell insincerity. I
they,
mean, we remind ourselves of that in project delivery all
yes,
the time. I would rather you be yourself and talk about something in your own unique way than for you to try and scramble to be something different that the client looks at and suddenly goes, "That's kind of weird. Why the change here?" So,
yeah.
being authentic, I absolutely agree, and being yourself because clients, we think we hide some of that. No,
Mhm.
clients know, they're pretty savvy. A lot of
They
them
know. They know.
supervisors and they deal with political entities and the public, and they can smell insincerity.
Yes, I struggle with this sometimes because I'm not on project delivery, right? And I bring a different perspective maybe than maybe delivery does. I'm very outgoing. I love people, and sometimes I try to be, a Robert, or I try to be an AV, and that does not work for me or my personality. And it just it's like you said, clients can sniff that out pretty quickly. So I
And
love that,
same
Kyler.
way too. I can't be an
Yeah,
AV. I can't be a Megan. I can't
right.
be a April. That's why we have those unique people in those positions.
It is. It is. We all bring our own unique talents. And so we've got to lean into those. Lexi says, my number one New Year's resolution is to make the most of winter, especially considering I will be moving. Yes. So for most of you who don't know, Lexi is moving up north to the freezing cold. She will still be with Avero, but it will be quite the shock for her. So, Lexi, good luck. You might need to get a new wardrobe to stay warm. I don't know, some snow boots. So let's go on down. We have some questions. Kyler asked, and this goes back to being on site and in person. So on this thread, I understand meeting in person is important, but we can get the majority of projects done via Zoom, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We did that for 2.5 years,
Uh-huh.
and uh, it was a real. It was again, it was a scramble for a lot of our clients. Our clients had not embraced any type of except for Teams, because usually they had a Microsoft license that included Teams as
Right.
well, but they were barely using that. So they had never really embraced that technology. So when I started at Avero, everything was very much still in person. You were expected to go to the client almost every week, which is what I did when I started at Avero. But then for 2.5 years, almost all of it was via Zoom, and we made it work. I think the benefit that we had is we had already embraced it internally,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm located in Phoenix, headquarters is in Tennessee. So I was already doing a lot via Zoom anyway, working for Avero internally. So it was educating the client to a degree and sort of holding their hand as to this is how this works and this is the best way to schedule these things. Yeah, which is the best platform for you to use? I'm not excited about Teams, to be honest. We tend to use Zoom internally because it works and has worked on almost every device. So just getting clients through those bugs and fixes opened up a new world for them in terms of being able to connect remotely. So if you are a client that you really need to have this all completely done via Zoom, either because there's a budget or there's a travel restriction, or you simply just don't have people consistently in the office, sure, we can do the entire thing via Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially since we do business, across the country, it does make life easier when we can do those Zoom calls because there's a lot of planning that's involved when we have to be on site, especially if we're on site out west or wherever. There's a lot of planning that needs to go into that. I'm going back to the comments. Lexi says, OCM is beginning to be such a large hot topic for clients. We are no longer having to explain OCM to you. They are asking us about it. They are. And a lot of them are getting certified. Um, and Robert, do you want to speak to this comment a little bit?
No, absolutely true. And there's a lot of clients that already went through ProSci certification, or in fact, I have a client now that we just started working with who's like, we did all this training like 3 or 4 years ago and we never used it. Can you use it on this ERP project? And I'm like,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yes.
OCM and techniques and skills and the functional side of it pairs perfectly with a lot of these technology projects, because I'm going to be able to get buy-in from your end users all the way up and down the organization, all the way to your end users on this, so that I can apply a lot of these main areas of OCM to what they're dealing with every day on the project. It is a wonderful way to finally um, get end users to take their training and relate it to something practical and real
Mhm.
world, because you're going to need to be able to do that, especially on an ERP replacement, even post go live, because the
Oh,
change management doesn't stop the moment you go live. There's a
mhm.
variety of things that still need to be done as well. So the brevity you get by being able to tie these together to these concepts that they've already been trained on makes OCM a heck of a lot easier to do and easier to deal with messaging to the end users.
Yes, and OCM starts from day one. When you start, visioning for what you want your organization to be in the next 3 to 5 years, change management starts then. When we propose implementation, change management is a big part of that. And most people think that it shouldn't start until you implement, but it should start from day one, which is what we just talked to a client about recently. They said our number one priority is change management from the get go, from the absolute beginning of the project. Uh,
Yeah, it's usually even in our shortlist interviews.
yes.
When we're finalists on something, the OCM conversation usually occurs inside of that shirtless presentation as well. So you're exactly right. As soon as they can jump on it, they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Clay says, I want to do more research and keep up with the latest findings about organizational change and the most effective practices in 2025. Yes, I love this. I love this. What else do we have, guys? Kyler says, oh, Lexi, same Megan, we're not the technical project people. No, no, but we know enough to be dangerous. That's for sure. Kyler says ProSci is amazing as long as you tailor it to your organization. Readiness, organizational assessment are critical. Um, they use templates which don't work. What about you guys? Good question, Kyler.
Yeah, it's gonna vary from situation to situation and from
Mhm,
client to client. Some of them are, and I'll take a school district for an example. They are, not surprisingly, they're eager about recurring training and professional training. And so a lot of them, they take this very seriously. So there's already an expectation that's set up there, that there is the attitude of being a lifelong learner. There's already resources available to you to continue to learn. There's an expectation in a lot of ways that you continue to learn.
mhm,
Atmospheres like that are great for us to be able to bring in really filled out plans as to how OCM works out. Some organizations, they understand it, but they're like, I just need to know what's going to tie into governance.
mhm,
And so they want to have something that's targeted. And yes, they understand, like a racy matrix, and but some of that can become noise if you don't have it defined to something specific as to that's going to service what need
mhm,
that's going to serve. It becomes a noise of documentation and some more information. No one wants a project status report that's 20 or 30 pages because it has 2 pages on OCM if the sponsorship is not really looking for that. So
mhm,
you do have to tailor it from client to client. And if you try and go in there with a one size fits all approach to something
mhm,
like OCM or chart of accounts or selection, you're going to be sadly disappointed. That is not how it works, unfortunately.
No, it's not. I think it has to be practical, and it does. It absolutely depends. But, means of communication, like you just said, no one wants to read a 20-page project status report. Sometimes people don't even want to read a one-page project status report. So we do have to get creative in how we communicate these things that involve change management, right? So we've done video messaging, we do emails, we've done cartoons, we've done all kinds of different things to make sure that our clients stay engaged. So more of that to come in 2025. We have more. Let's see. As we say with our RFP templates are just templates. You still need to do the heavy lifting and make lots of changes by tailoring our response to the organization. Yes, absolutely. We have outlines, but based on what the client is asking for or they're not asking for, we really have to do a deep dive into what we think is the best approach for their project. All right, let's move on because we went down a few rabbit holes there for a minute. So
Great comments.
our
Great comments.
great rabbit holes. Yes, absolutely. I love when the conversation takes on its own form. So the first resolution was more in-person meetings. I think we can all agree on that. Our second one that I want to discuss is how you guys can strengthen your cybersecurity and your resilience. Meaning, I want to talk about what steps you all can take to be more proactive than reactive, and not wait for an event to happen to do the things that you need to do to become more resilient. So, Robert, what are your thoughts on how our local government clients can be more proactive as opposed to reactive when it comes to cybersecurity?
I think the thing we still consistently um, don't see is regular testing of your disaster recovery plan, your incident response plan, your business continuity plan. Um, the technology is great. It can do a lot of things. A lot of organizations have been solving technology issues with aging equipment, or not having multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication.
Right.
So the technical aspect of it, I think that can be solved. It's also deceiving as to how well it can be solved, because you can go out, you can get an IT vendor and throw some money at purchasing things, and someone's going to come in and implement multi-factor authentication. But if you're an IT staff of two, okay, so who's going to take care of that long term? Who's going to tie all that together? It's one thing to have outside expertise to come in and set all these things up. What is going to be coming next out of that, and how do I keep my eye on these things? Workstation patching is another one that occasionally we get surprised by. People just didn't have time, and so they thought patching was automated. They haven't looked at it in 4 or 5 months. They do go to look at it and realize it hasn't been working for the past several months. So there's a lot of technology that can solve this. What I still consistently see is I have a disaster recovery plan, but I haven't practiced it in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if titles changed and people came and went and you implemented new technology, you've got a new managed service provider, any of those things change, your plan is going to be useless to a degree. And again, you don't want to have to plan in the moment where a crisis is occurring. You want to have a plan that's ready and one that you've already practiced, because when you practice it, not only do you get skilled at doing it, but you also find the flaws that pop up. So
Right.
you didn't think about how this software vendor change impacted cybersecurity until you did a disaster recovery tabletop exercise, and you're like, oh yeah, we need to fill in that piece of information, or this is no longer relevant, so we need to change the plan and take it off the list. That really is what's going to keep you out of the headlines, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because your ability to stop it, mitigate it, and recover from it is still what's going to be the most important thing. Is to, if you're a CIO, do you survive a cyber incident? Some CIOs don't. So just the planning aspect, staying on top of it, practicing it. And if you're someone who's in another part of the organization, but you're still in executive leadership, ask these questions of IT.
Yes.
Realize that there's no way to have this all perfectly buttoned down. So IT people need to get over this concept of, I'm going to have this one and done scenario, and I'm going to get everything set, and I don't have to worry about it for a year. Like we always talk about, cybersecurity is carried from moment to moment. So you have to be vigilant. So being honest about that, and also letting executive staff know what the situation is. One, executive staff needs to not get scared by that. It's always an evolving process. But two, you also need to support your IT staff and letting them know what the business continuity plan is. And I'll real short, if I need to bring all the systems back up and there's 30 things that the organization does that usually need to be running on a daily basis, I can't spin 30 things back up at the same time. I need a little prioritization. So I need to know computer aided dispatching of police needs to come up first.
Right.
Building and permitting needs to come up second. That's where IT needs your help and executive leadership in figuring out how do we recover and how do we get up to speed as quickly as possible without overwhelming staff.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Robert was a former CIO. So, Robert, talk a little bit about that and what experience you bring, specifically in this cybersecurity topic or resolution, if you will.
Yeah, the thing that always comes to mind first with me is I'm not here to beat up on your IT staff. A lot of
Mhm.
people, including the IT staff themselves, feel like it's okay. Everyone wants to beat up on IT this week or this month. IT, like all other departments in local gov, quasi gov, state gov, they've got a million priorities. They're having very difficult time hiring new talent to come in. Very rarely can they pay massive salaries or do massive increases to attract the talent to stay long term. There's just a lot on your plate. And so a
Mhm.
lot of it is also looking and seeing what's a good managed service provider who could provide a lot of this expertise for me, but at a reasonable monthly cost, because I'm not going to be able to pay $200,000 for a networking person.
Mhm.
So but along with those managed service providers, you still have to stay on top of them and make sure they're delivering what they need to be. And sometimes I think we make software vendors and managed service providers out to be these greedy people that all they want to do is take your money and run. No, they're busy as well, so they'll follow the path of least resistance. And if you don't stay on top of making sure that they're providing you with the latest security standards, that they're doing everything they need to that's in the contract, they're going to spend most of their time with the customer who is demanding and is needy on things like that and make you second or third priority. So there are some things that you have to do that just because you offload a lot of this to a managed service provider or you go SaaS based for all of your ERP and you think, okay, good, I don't have to worry about that anymore. You still need to manage that relationship. You still have exposure because someone else is taking care of your cybersecurity or someone else is hosting your data. So there aren't these solutions that you can just bring in, spend a lot of money on, and like I said, set it and forget it. You have to stay on top of it. You have to prioritize. You've already got 30 or 40 projects that you're trying to get done. And again, you're trying to retain staff and keep them engaged, make sure everyone's providing good customer service. It's a lot to keep moving. And you can very quickly become reactive rather than proactive in IT. And I saw this all the time, and I would fall into that trap myself of I just want to go take care of all the help desk tickets and keep all my customers happy, but I'm ignoring this big thing that's sitting there and it's waiting for me to actually start tackling it because the problem's getting bigger and bigger every day. Does that make IT unique? No, I think every department goes through that as well, but that was my experience in the trenches working with IT.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to roles and responsibilities. Everybody in local government has a lot going on, but whose responsibility is it to make sure that my disaster recovery plan is up to date? Who's going to hold whoever's responsibility it is accountable to that? Right. So it all goes back, to change management, really, and breaking down these silos. So, Robert, one of the things that you mentioned is the communication efforts between IT departments and the rest of the organization. Sometimes when we go in, we see this big silo, right, come up because maybe there's some disconnect between what IT is saying and what HR finance actually needs from a citizen perspective. So what advice do you have? And guys, we do have a video on this on our YouTube channel. I did want to make note of that. It's questions to ask your CIO because sometimes there's a communication barrier there, right? IT sometimes likes to get technical, and then everyone else maybe don't understand the technicalities. They're non-technical. So I do think it's important to break down that silo and make sure that we're communicating across departments?
Yeah, the simplest advice I can give is you need to have a CIO, and they have to be true C-suite, and they have to stay involved at the executive level. And I say that because we run into a lot of IT directors and CIOs who um, are helping hang monitors in the conference room.
Hmm.
They're helping out on help desk this week because someone's out sick. Um, and a lot of them came up through technical jobs in IT. And as is classic for a lot of us, when we moved up and became supervisors and managers, the very thing that got you your promotion is usually the first thing you have to get rid of as soon as you're promoted. And
Hmm.
CIOs can be very, very bad about that. And sponsorship usually is like, well, I don't understand their world, so I don't want to put too much pressure. Or it took us so long to find this CIO and actually get someone to accept this position. I don't want to rock the boat. But your CIO has to be at C-suite level, has to be engaged at that level. And if that means you have to have a deputy CIO or someone underneath that who does more internal facing, strictly IT things, that's usually what we recommend, because otherwise it's too easy for CIOs to silo off into their own world and go, no one else understands that we go through, and everyone else on sponsorship is going, IT doesn't understand what my end users don't understand. These are simple OCM communication things that can be dealt with on a weekly basis or on a daily basis, where everyone at the C-suite level and executive level is staying engaged, and they talk about these things rather than CIO is not going to make it to the meeting today. They had someone call in sick, so now they have to go install this firewall at a remote location. It's just,
Hmm.
I think that's the easiest thing people can solve that they tend not to solve, and they dismisses it as not being important. They think you hired a CIO so I can keep the computers running. I want to be out in the field keeping the computers running. Doesn't
Hmm.
work.
Right, right. Let's move on to resolution number three. And it is investing in AI for service optimization. Now, AI is the latest and greatest topic. You know, it's coming off of everyone's lips right now, particularly in the government sector. There's a lot of noise around safeguarding information and data that's being shared. So, Robert, speak a little bit on how your teams are having the conversations around AI, and what we are advising our clients and future clients around AI adoption.
So I can make this one very short and sweet because there's a lot of complicated areas with AI. That's why we have in-house expertise that is staying on top of trends, as well as what the option availability are for using this with ERP, citizen engagement. I can distill it all down into one simple thing. You have to solve your AI policy problem before your employee does. And
Mhm.
classic example is situation we heard of recently is someone was taking a phone call from someone speaking in a foreign language. They pull out their phone, they turn on translate, and then they get the translation there of this conversation they're having with a customer who is also explaining their social security number, their healthcare status, tons of PII, personally identifiable information. And it's a classic story of the end user, the call taker, is just simply trying to get the information that they need. In public safety, this happens as well. Usually it's a language line aspect where you identify that the person is not speaking English, and then you bring in someone who automatically is able to figure out what the language is and translate, especially on a 911 call.
Mhm.
So your users are going to be using everything that's on their phone and what they download on their computer just to be able to solve these problems, not thinking, oh, I'm going to revolutionize the use of AI in my county or my housing authority. A classic example of you have to get some sort of a grasp on what that policy is, because that PII is probably being retained on that phone, or you don't even know if it is being retained on that phone or not. So you have to get a handle on the policy and what you want to do and the direction you want to go and how you want to deal with that with staff. Is it a simple administrative policy? Is it an education piece? Is it, hey, great idea, let's find a way to do that securely so you can keep doing that particular task that you're using AI on? You have to figure that out to a degree. We can guide you through that. We can show you all the options. We can give you great recommendations, but it's really going to be your policy and what you want to do with it. And if you're a public safety client, a lot of you know you can't talk about AI in a public meeting. It brings out a lot of negativity bias. And if you're going to talk about being able to use AI technologies, you need to be able to speak intelligently about what it is and what it is not when you're dealing with your public. So not only do you have an internal policy issue, you have an external policy issue. The external policy issue is the one that's actually more complicated because it's going to be up to how do you message yourself as an organization and as a city. Are you forward thinking? Are you risk taking and adventurous because that's what your citizens want? Or are
Mhm.
you more of a traditional model where it's like, nope, I would rather keep things secure rather than go cutting edge on something that we don't have an answer as to what it does and does not do.
Right, right. And my advice to you all would be to embrace it. It's not going anywhere. It's actually, I guess, revolutionizing itself very, very quickly in this space. And right now, I think there are a lot of uses, but no one has really figured out, the great big thing that AI is going to do. Right. One of the things that we specialize in, just a little sales pitch here, is AI readiness assessments. Because for you to implement anything AI, you need to make sure that your organization is ready for it in terms of technology, in terms of data, in terms of policy, which Robert has already hit on. So, if you have questions around AI, please reach out. We'd be happy to answer anything. Clay is actually on. They are our AI expert, and our own mini panels talking about AI all the time. So, Clay, thank you for joining us today, and let us know in the comments what you think, and what your advice would be to our clients and future clients. So,
Amy and Clay do a great job on this
they do
topic.
a great job, and they have actually gone live. So there are also videos and blogs out there on AI readiness as well. And make sure you download our 2025 report. We talk about all things digital transformation in the report. The QR code is in the left-hand corner of this live today, so make sure you go out and download. And we are always revising everything that we put out based on what you guys are hearing in the market and what we're hearing from our vendor friends and the research that we're doing on our own. So make sure you download that 2025 report. Before we wrap up, Robert, I know we've had a great conversation today. We might need to do a round two on resolutions. But before we wrap up, is there any advice as we look into 2025 that you would give our clients around all things technology? What is one piece of advice that you would give our clients and future clients?
I would seriously have someone come in and help you with seeing where you are with your ERP and with your technology. And again, this isn't like, multi hundreds of thousands of dollars assessment. This is just, and if you just want to have a phone call with someone like us, that's a great way to do it. I think a lot of these, especially with the ERP, there's so many long-term implications. Let me distill it down to a simple one. Whether you're ready to replace your ERP system or not, you're still going to have to figure out a way to live with your existing one because you're not going to go live in 6 months.
Mm-mm.
And you're probably, when you start to think about it, you're at least 2, maybe 3 years away from going live on ERP. In some cases, you can re-leverage what you have. You don't have to throw everything out. You don't have to wait until implementation to figure out data conversion. There's a lot of things that you can look at, even renegotiating existing vendor relationships, looking at your cybersecurity, technology, processes, expectations. How is it currently be supported? How is it currently supported? What is the state of your data? You don't have to wait, and you don't have to spend a heck of a lot of money on a huge assessment um, to get the information you need to figure out where you're going to go in the next year or two or three. That's something that can be done. It can be done with folks like us, obviously, and that way it's going to give you a lot of peace of mind, and you're not anxious as to what am I going to do with all this data, and I'm not going to solve it until I've selected the software vendor and my project management team. No, if you can talk about data conversion now and get ahead of that, and then start to wrap your head around what that looks like and what those decisions involve. Do it now. Don't wait until later when you're in the middle of the project, because again, like we talked about earlier, you
Mhm.
solve think about these things sooner. Everything else goes a lot easier and is much more predictable and it's less disruptive.
Yes, and always ask questions. We're always available for your questions or for your thoughts, for your comments. We really do want to embrace the fact that we are independent and agnostic, and we want to be the trusted advisor in this space to help you guys break through the noise because there is so much of it out there. And so we want to make sure that we help you all decipher through all of that on what's best for your organization and helping you get to that next step. So thank you guys for joining us today. I still want to hear from you all, so make sure you comment in the chat box. This live will be accessible via LinkedIn and also YouTube. We are active on all social media platforms, and make sure that you go out and download our latest 2025 report. And with that, Robert, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a
Yeah,
great
thank you.
conversation. I'm super excited for what's to come in 2025. And again, if you guys have questions, make sure you reach out. Thanks, guys. Bye.